Vielen Dank, Dr. Mützenich.
Thank you,
for your
Dr. Mützenich.
hoogaatmige, very, I would say, breathtaking words of welcome. Thank you very much. Very supportive words for the OSCE. Please now allow me to introduce the Secretary General of the OSCE, which I do with great pleasure, as he is the creator and I would say the brain behind the Security Day concept. The Secretary General, Alberto Zanier, has been our SG since 2011. And before that, he was the UN Special Representative for Kosovo and head of the UN Interim Administration Mission in Kosovo, UNMIK. Please, ladies and gentlemen, welcome him with a good round of applause.
So good morning, everybody, and welcome to this first OSCE Security Day in Berlin. Thank you very much to the German chairmanship for the support they've given us for this, but very special thanks to the two co-organizers, the Konrad Adenauer Stiftung. We had in the Allianz Forum last night a very, I would say, interesting aperitif for our discussion, touching on some difficult and sensitive issues. And by the way, this morning, as I was looking at the news coming from the UK, I was thinking back to some of the things I was hearing last night. At some time, I feel that we, in our institutions, are taking too much distance from the people, from our societies. We need to learn to go back and to work with the civil society. We need to build coalitions. We need to better communicate. And that's also for governments, of course, the issues that we're dealing with. And in a way, also educate people and explain better. So this is one of the challenges we have in front of us, as the number of challenges we are facing is becoming increasingly complicated. And of course, that was the beginning of a day which I have to say I'm looking forward to the discussions, of a day of exchanges on the current situation, on the challenges we have on the agenda of our organization, but also on the role of our organization in tackling these challenges. And I'm grateful to the Friedrich Ebert Stiftung for hosting us for this debate and for what I look forward as a interesting and hopefully productive day. One point I was making yesterday, the introduction, is that as we see increasing division, we see conflict emerging in Europe, issues about the violation of the key principles that govern our relationships, perhaps not enough debate about those violations and the reasons for the problems we have, and too much exchange of accusations. Opening up a space for dialogue and debate in an environment that is increasingly divided and confrontational is difficult. When you have confrontation, it's easier to sit on one side of the argument, and it's really difficult to try to occupy the center and to open up some space, or the space that is possible to open up for an engagement that, given the circumstances, but should be as constructive as possible. I think that remains our job. That remains the philosophy of this organization. In Ukraine, we have proven with the facts that we found a space politically, but also operationally, to engage on the ground. I remain convinced that the role of the OSCE on the ground in Ukraine and in the political process, of course, is useful. And if we didn't find that space for that engagement, I'm also convinced that the situation would be much worse. Obviously, we are not a medicine that can, in a way, help solve the problems. The problems have to be addressed by and solved by those who are directly concerned, but we can facilitate, and we should continue engaging, facilitating. So this is the spirit, if you want, of of the discussion today. And we will have a number of panels, and we try to look at clusters of issues, and I would just briefly touch on them. We will begin by a chat over relations in the politico-military sphere. As I say, we have seen conflict reappear in Europe. We see a summit under preparation, and we see relationships becoming increasingly militarized in a way, and there is talk about more investments on defense. So this is something that just a few years back we wouldn't expect we would be seeing. At the same time, what we see is that some of the tools governing the military-to-military relationships that we developed already from the time of the Cold War are losing speed, are losing effectiveness. So on the one hand, we see a more problematic development in the relations. On the other, we see less effective tools to address the problems in the sphere. So we need to openly discuss that and try to see what can we do to address this problem. We need to acknowledge the problem, first of all. So that I think is a discussion I'm really looking forward to. We'll have then a panel on, we call it Harmonizing Integration Process. It's a bit of an ambitious title that we found. But basically the philosophy there is going back to the CSE. The CSE was created at the time to have a dialogue among enemies, NATO and the Warsaw Pact. Now we see divisions in Europe. The institutional setup is much more complex, of course, but as there is increasing division in Europe, we see also a division in the clusters of organizations that appear in the Euro-Atlantic Eurasian space. And we need to take stock of that and see how we can reconnect also in terms of institutional relationships. Whether or not the OSCE has a role in this, it's beside the point. I don't think we need to worry too much. But we need to recognize the problem and to try to define it and see what is the way forward. After all, the agenda of the OSCE, still this was the key concept at the Astana summit in 2010, was to try to build a common space, a common cooperative space. And we have gone a long way back from the time we were discussing this concept. Is there a condition under which we can try to reverse the trend and start moving back in that direction? We will then have a larger debate on the global issues, and we started having a discussion on migration. We're dealing with terrorism issues, etc. These are issues that do affect the security of citizens, and as we look at the vote in the UK, I'm sure that some of the reasons why things went the way they went is perceptions around some of these issues. So I think here too we need to come out with stronger lines, with more shared policies. There are divisions in how to address these issues. There is not enough communication, in my view, to the people. The politically correct sometimes stands in the way of effective policies. So we need also to open up that discussion. The informality of the Security Day might help us address this issue. And then the last session will be about trying to move from confrontation to cooperation. And I'm not obviously trying to be over-optimistic. I do recognize that we have very serious obstacles. But this should not discourage us from continuing engaging to find a space also for a dialogue that may be difficult, for a cooperation that may be in many areas unrealistic in this moment, but that we should still try to promote. So finding the space and keeping that space open in the face of the problems that we face, I think it's important, and it's key to what we are doing. So I'm looking forward also to that final discussion, and then I'll be happy to join you all at the end of the day to assess a little bit where we are after this, this day-long brainstorming. So thank you again all for hosting us or for co-hosting this group. Thank you for joining us all the way here in Berlin, and I'm looking forward to your discussions. Thank you very much.